Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I am Michelle McHugh. I'm the director of the Paul F. Herring Graduate Program in Television and Media Management at Drexel University. Today, I'm honored to introduce you to Sarah Schreiber. Sarah will be presenting her research as her final step in her journey to a Master's of Science degree in Television and Media Management. Sarah.
I am Sarah Schreiber, and this is my thesis symposium for my MS in Television and Media Management, and it's called Curtain Call for Success. So first and foremost, welcome. I added my links here, so my website, social media, and LinkedIn and emails. If you have any questions that you're thinking throughout, save them to the end, please. But be sure to connect with me afterwards as well. But a little bit about me. So I did my undergrad, I will age myself, 2 decades ago. I got a BFA at the University of Miami for musical theater. And since then, I've worked for 2 decades in the entertainment industry in a variety of different parts of it it's a very unique story that I've had. I started as an actor and moved into hosting as well. I worked in nearly every medium, from theater to opera to television to film to commercials, from New York to Los Angeles, as well as Miami. As a host, I've worked for HSN. I worked red carpets. I did freelance work in the news. I worked for tourism. I worked with corporate gigs. And most recently, for the last 6.5 years, I've worked in sports entertainment. I've worked with a company called WWE, and I've worked as a host, a backstage correspondent, and an announcer for Raw, which Monday Night Raw is now the longest scripted episodic on television. A lot of people don't know that. Fun fact. SmackDown and NXT that have all been on Fox, USA Network, the CW, and in 2025 heading to Netflix. And I've had the amazing opportunity to travel the entire world with that, with WWE, from Mexico to Paris to India. And it's been extraordinary. I've been a WWE Global Ambassador and worked with the Boys and Girls Club alongside Denzel Washington, Make-A-Wish with John Cena, and also the Special Olympics, which has been some of the most fulfilling part of this journey. So now let's talk about how I got to my theme, Curtain Call for Success, for my thesis. I wanted to take my undergraduate degree, my BFA in musical theater, as well as all of this 2 decades of my career, all of those skills that I've gained now as I pivot in towards the business side of things, television and media management. And I was thinking about all the skills I've gained throughout my career so far. And I thought about the corporate gigs I've had the opportunity to do as a host. Whether I worked with Pepsi, I worked with Mattel, with Honda, Ford commercial trucks, Travelers Insurance, and they hired actors. They hired actors and they hired hosts. And I would represent the company. I would network with new clients and consumers. And I would pitch all these new products and engage these clients about these new products or train them on them. I actually worked with Honda on a live broadcast from Los Angeles to all the different Honda stores around the country and train their salespeople how to interact with consumers and how to interact and tell them about the new products. And I thought to myself, what is that quality that actor performers have that they're seeking in these corporate jobs, in these business jobs, that they're not getting there? And so, lo and behold, I discovered, as I started thinking and doing some research, and it's called soft skills. So today, for the Curtain Call for Success, we will look at and examine theater arts teaching soft skills to give you a leg up in business and help you set the stage for success. So we're going to talk about what are soft skills, why are they essential in business right now, how does theater arts teach soft skills, and how can we apply that as a creative tool to develop these important skills. So I think it's time to start at the very beginning, which is a very good place to start. I'm going to give you the definition. What are soft skills? The Cambridge Dictionary definition says, people's abilities to communicate with each other and work well together. I'm going to repeat that one more time. What are the soft skills? It's people's abilities to communicate with each other and work well together. Well, as we look at that definition together, I would say that's not just an essential skill. It's imperative to have those skills when you work in business to be successful. But not only that, in everyday life. So soft skills are the non-technical skills that define and shape who you are as a person, how you interact with others, and how you approach your work. So you may have heard of soft skills maybe with different words. So there's other words that they use for soft skills like interpersonal skills, intangible skills. And so when we talk about intangible skills, they're not able to be measured. They're the unmeasurable skills. They're subjective, unlike technical skills, which you can test. In addition to that, there are also referred to as transferable skills. So when we talk about technical skills, those are specific to jobs. Transferable skills are able to be transferred in different industries, in different work environments. Technical skills are more job specific. Lastly, another word for it is people skills. I had a meeting recently and I walked out of the meeting and the gentleman talking to me, and after we had a long meeting, he said to me, "Do you work with people?" And I thought to myself, wait a second, doesn't everyone pretty much work with people? Isn't that how the world works? And then I thought to myself, well, I did say, yes, I work with WWE. I host arenas that have up to sometimes 10,000 people in it, which is a different type of people skill for sure. But I thought to myself, oh, I didn't know this was a skill necessarily. But is this something that I was born with? Is this something that I trained to be? Is this something that can be taught? And this is something that we're going to talk about throughout this symposium. But before we move on, I must state, soft skills, I'm not saying soft skills are going to replace the technical skills. They are both very important. Technical skills are your groundwork for the direction of your career. Soft skills are there to enhance you, to stand out in a competitive landscape and give you a leg up in the competitive field in your career. So now let's talk about examples of soft skills. As we look at this, we might take all these skills for granted. But as we look at all these different examples we talk about, I want you to think for yourself, oh, how am I doing in these different parts? Could I develop these? And I do think, and as we look at these and we talk about them more, I know for myself, I had yesterday I was doing a group project and I became very aware of my symposium today. And I said, all right, Sarah, where's that soft skill you talk about? So let's get into it. Communication, being able to convey an idea clearly, to be able to engage and be impactful in the conversations you have, whether with a colleague, with a boss, with a client, or with a future client. Another one, which is one of the ones that stands out to me that we forget about sometimes, but all of you right now are doing so well, so thank you, is active listening. I always love this saying that we're born with 2 ears and 1 mouth. So let's talk about, why is communication good in business? For public speaking, presentations, negotiations, and pitches. Next up, as a soft skill, creativity, thinking outside the box, having original, fresh ideas. How is creativity good for business? Innovative thinking, problem solving, talking about new products, unique scripts, marketing, how to stand out and capture attention, thinking differently. Leadership, being able to motivate, inspire, and guide a group to a common goal. Something that stands out to me as a strong leader is someone that's also able to identify the strength in others and help them grow and develop for everyone's success. So how is that good for leadership? That's good for in business, project management, motivating teams to achieve results effectively. Here's another one, emotional intelligence. Being able to recognize and understand your own emotions and also others, and being able to be open to other people's feelings and perspectives. So emotional intelligence is important in business because you're more empathetic. It's better for managing relationships in the office as well as with clients, and also self-awareness. Now, next up is adaptability, being able to think on your feet, adjust to any situation, being flexible in changing circumstances. One of my recent classes that I had for this last term, which was one of my favorites, it's absolutely incredible, is TV programming, and it's done by Professor Bridget McCrae. And in her very first class, who's had a long-lasting career for herself and successful, she said, it's important right now, specifically in the television entertainment industry, but I think along all different industries, is to be adaptable. Things are changing so rapidly, and you have to be ready with the skills you have or looking to gain more skills to evolve with new technology, for example, from linear television, cable television to streaming. Is one of those examples. So let's talk about adaptability, flexibility in constantly changing environments. And last, but certainly not least, collaboration, working with a team, being able to work effectively with others to achieve success, whether that's open communication, mutual respect, listening to other, taking direction, taking criticism, so that you can be successful together. So collaboration is teamwork and working well with others. So as I was doing my research on soft skills, not just the definition and the examples, I started looking at how they're used in articles currently. And I was surprised that I was bombarded with lots of information right now on soft skills. So these articles like soft skills for career mastery, the skills that truly matter, why soft skills define long-term success. 7 reasons leadership soft skills are imperative for growth. The soft skills advantage. And anybody can learn the hard skills. It's the soft skills that matter. Obviously, I've said this early on in the symposium, technical skills are imperative for success, but I do believe companies are realizing more than ever that soft skills help companies thrive as an organization, creating a more productive and positive workplace and environment. And so they're looking at soft skills as assets that they're looking in potential new employees. And these soft skills are becoming more crucial in today's hiring and recruitment process. So I decided, well, let's go right to the source. And I had the amazing opportunity to talk to Noah Cooper. Noah Cooper recruits and trains talents early in their career, from show producers, digital producers, reporters, as well as hiring managers. He teaches a class about leadership. So I said to Noah, what are the things that you tell the hire managers to look for in the candidates they're looking to hire? Or what do you look for when hiring?
So some of it is like, some emotional intelligence kind of stuff, it's like about just critical thinking stuff. If you're in this situation, you need to give them some if you're hiring for like a reporter out into the field that's got to deal with a lot of things coming at them, in a live environment, they got a live mic in front of them, and you give them some behavioral questions. When presented with something like this, how are you going to respond to this? It could be when you're in a one-on-one interview with a combative subject, right? Someone that doesn't want a mic in their face. Okay, so how are you gonna react when they come back at you with this? What are you gonna say to them? Or if it's like a hiring manager in a breaking news situation, you've got 3 or 4 different choices to make. Which choice are you gonna make, and why are you gonna make that? So you present them with some options based on what they're hiring for, to be able to better assess what they're actually going to do and get an authentic answer rather than something kind of canned.
So Noah Cooper, first and foremost, talked about emotional intelligence. He also talked about adaptability in the field, as well as your behavioral actions. What would you do in this situation? All right. So right up front, he talked to me about authenticity. And I know he said that wrapping up that interview question, authenticity was really big on for him. He was wanting to be true in who you are, not giving fake answers. Emotional intelligence, like we just said, curiosity was a big one for him. I know he was also looking in the newsroom specific, but looking at journalists. But he said for him it was that desire to keep learning, to explore and understanding new things around them, ability to collaborate, self-awareness, and lastly, this was an interesting one, and if anyone watching right now, and I do know a few people worked in a newsroom or have worked in a live environment, it's a highly stressful environment. So he said sometimes, and he didn't say sometimes, it was one of the big topic he talked about, having someone that's fun to be around. He also said that writing skills were number one for him as well, but fun to be around. Okay, so as we saw, there were a lot of articles about the soft skills. They're looking for it more now than ever, but why? Why are companies looking for the soft skills, and why are they possibly undeveloped? All right, well, we'll get into it because all of us walk around with a computer in our pocket. We have our cell phones attached to us at all costs, at all times, and we're texting more than ever over phone calls. And I want you all to think about, or I want you all to make sure to have a good solid phone call with someone you think about later this afternoon. But thinking about how many emails you send, text messages you send, how we use emojis to represent, or memes to represent our emotional reactions. When we're doing that, we're not reading body cues, facial cues. We don't get tone through emails or text. Also, social media. Social media becomes a little bit more of a shallow, instant gratification relationship rather than a long, meaningful conversation or relationship. AI has a lot to affecting this. Gaming has become more popular than ever and will continue to soar. Both of those will. And lastly, influencers, the success of influencers, the amount that we're seeing. I worked with someone that's highly successful as an influencer years ago. And I thought, oh, he's going to come in larger than life, large ego, big personality. And he came to set and he was quite timid and kind of to himself. And honestly, let me preface, as a performer and actor, you don't always have to be on, by no means. But I just expected a different type of quality from him. And I realized in that moment, and not necessarily to this person, but when we talk about influencers, it's a very me and my phone, me and my computer, me and the iPad. And that's the interaction I have. Of course, influencers now, the production's gotten a lot bigger. But in that initial state, it was a very isolated creative tool or job for people. And speaking of isolation, I cannot talk about underdevelopment of soft skills without talking about the COVID-19 pandemic and how it completely changed our world, similar to what we're doing right now, remote school, remote work, how we were quarantined. It was definitely something that forced an underdevelopment in our soft skills. And then I want to talk about our traditional education programs. There's a focus on technical skills because they are easily tested. But I do believe that if we focus just on our technical skills, we are not setting up our students out into the workforce to succeed without understanding everything that we need to know going in and how to behave and how to interact. So I do think there's some underdevelopment that we have in our traditional education programs when it comes to soft skills. When I was talking to Noah Cooper, I also asked him, when he is interviewing candidates or talking to hiring managers, I asked him if this was something where he had a great read on people. I asked him if he studied psychology, or is this something he taught or was taught, pardon. And he said, no, it came from experience. And so for him, and like I said, when he was teaching leadership as well, to people, is there a way we can teach this? And a lot of people think, right, we're right side brained or we're left side brain. Right side being emotive and creative and artistic, left being mathematic and analytical. But all of the people that I got to interview said, we all have potential to be creative and analytical, both of us, all of us as humans using both sides. It's just like when we're working out. If I was only to do bicep curls on my left side, my right side would be weak. So if we can focus on developing both, I think that in itself would make us more successful in industries and business. But how are we going to do that? How can we teach that? And that's where it comes to theater. So soft skills may be called soft, but in reality, they may be one of the hardest to master. How can theater teach soft skills? So when we typically think of theater, we think of entertainment and performance, but there's a lot of techniques that actors are trained on that can be valuable tools to teach soft skills. Theater arts studies humans, human behaviors, human interactions, and of course, the drama. It wouldn't be theater without the drama, human interactions. So I want to talk you through a little bit of the basics. We'll do a quick tutorial of the things that you learn as a acting major or when you do acting classes. So acting basics, to be comfortable on stage. I had to go back and look at this, but it is still true. Public speaking is still one of the most commonly reported fears that humans do have. With everything that's going on in this world, why should we be afraid to talk in front of a group? But it still is. So that's one of the first things that we talk about, being confident talking in front of others. Also, there's physical presence. How you enter a room. I always love the quote, you only get one chance to make a good first impression. There you go. Let me try it one more time. You only get one chance to make a good first impression. And that's about, I was thinking in presence. I was thinking about the physical presence. And that's what it is. It's how you enter, your energy, but also how you are able to be grounded in your stance and how you are as a person. Mastering vocal techniques, whether it's enunciating, taking your time through presentations, breathing. I needed that. And then also sometimes neutralizing your accent. I do love accents. I am from New Jersey. Maybe it comes out here and there, but because I've been working in the performing arts and hosting, I have neutralized it a bit. Connecting with the audience, of course, engaging the audience, memorizing. This is one of my favorites that I think everybody should work on, embracing vulnerability. When we talk about technical skills, it's very right and wrong, right? If we're going to do a formula in math, there is one answer for this. For creatives and for example, like soft skills, it becomes subjective. But the number one thing teachers talk about is commitment. No matter what, 100% commit to your choice in performing. Sometimes it'll work, and sometimes you might fall on your face. But even when you do, you will learn something from that. You will gain knowledge from making mistakes. And lastly, handling nerves and pressure. We all get nervous. I was nervous before this. I felt like I could run a marathon prior to this presentation. But the thing that everybody that I work with, the people I've worked with prior, will all admit that nerves happen prior to performance. But it's about acknowledging the nerves, knowing that nerves could be something that motivates you, knowing that nerves can be something just showing you that you care about what you're about to do. And then the pressure, well, sometimes it's just put upon by ourselves. So we do the work and sometimes you just have to let go. Moving forward, we study character development and scene study. So studying human interaction, observing others. Who are you speaking to? You speak a lot differently to your mother than you would your professor or a boss. So acknowledging who you're speaking to in a scene, when we're talking about theater arts, being present and listening. Sometimes in theater, somebody might drop a line and you have to be aware that that happened and adapt to that moment on stage. Being present and listening to the audience. Is the audience giving you a reaction there? Should you hold for that reaction? And then I would also say an objective. When we do scene studying in theater, you break down a scene, and as a character, you say, what is my objective that I am going to do in this scene? What do I want to accomplish? Just like if we were to go in for a pitch, if I was pitching a script, what do I want to accomplish when I get into that room? I want them to give me money. I want them to greenlight my project. So in scene study, you take each line that you have and you say, what is the tactic I'm going to use to succeed and accomplish my objective? So for example, maybe I want to excite them about the project. Well, maybe I want to seduce them with the project. Maybe I want to scare them if it's a thriller with the project. But using different tonality in your energy and your performance and your vocal qualities can make a huge difference in a scene and in a pitch. Pardon me. And next up, the end product. We can do all the different studying and analyzing and rehearsing, but then it's time to put on the show. You have to produce a show. You have to collaborate, work with all different departments, cast and crew. And something that I always gravitate and love about the theater, and I know it's the same way in movie making, television. I know it's the same way in WWE, is acknowledging this would not happen if we did not have everybody from the cast, from the crew, from lighting to costumes, to director, to the cameraman. The show would not happen. So acknowledging and understanding our egos, but knowing that everybody's on the same team and collaborating together. Taking directions and getting notes, which is very important. Being able to take the criticism after rehearsing. Everybody sits together in front of an entire crew. The director will give you notes and then you have to adjust. Marketing, getting people in those seats, doing promotion. And lastly, the deadline. You have a date, there will be an audience, much like today. Do your work and show up. The show's going to go on. So as we just talked about through all those different acting techniques, these are the soft skills that you can acquire through theater: communication, collaboration, creativity, emotional intelligence, adaptability, confidence, work ethic, and time management. So I just wanted to use this graph to showcase that these skills in the theater arts that can be trained are also the soft skills we spoke about early on in the symposium that were so essential in success in business. So as you can see, theater arts and business, these are all qualities that they share. However, now it's time to talk about how the theater arts can teach it through specific exercises. So I'm going to give you 3 different exercises. These are some things that can be used in a master class, a workshop, or maybe the beginning of a curriculum. Something we say in theater is, we could do all the work, but it's time to put it on its feet. So we could start with just storytelling. Of course, there would be vocal warm-ups in the beginning, maybe some icebreakers, but having your students getting up in front of the class individually and telling a personal story. If some people are nervous about even just giving a story, maybe just getting them walking in the room and telling a joke, telling a fun fact, but eventually evolving and growing and being able to tell a full story with beginning, middle, and end. Using their voice, using their body, reading the room, and feeling comfortable in their own skin and feeling grounded. So as you can still see when we do this, and the soft skills targeted here are communication, confidence, presence, emotional intelligence, and embracing criticism. Because when you're done, you sit back and it's time to get notes. Next up, improvisation. I'm sure so many of you out there have heard of this. This is when you, there's a famous show, Whose Line Is It Anywhere? Anyway, improvisation is when two scene partners or more than that will act out a scene, but nothing has been prepared. Talk about adaptability and thinking on your feet. But I think with this one, maybe the teacher can add an objective, a secret objective to one of the students and tell them, I'd love you to accomplish this. This is a scenario, you need to accomplish this. If they don't accomplish it, the other actor needs to guess what the objective was, or the audience has to guess the objective as well. Now I have to talk about, of course, the cardinal rule in improvisation is yes and. Accepting what your other performer says, which takes active listening, and then moving the story forward with what they said. I always love using yes and in work as well. I think in my career, even when I got to a challenging situation where I thought, is this something I can do? Is this something that I should go for? Saying yes and taking the opportunity and learning from that moment, or even knowing those jobs I've taken have led to another job. And last, having the students put on a show, have them collaborate together, and maybe even take one of the stories that was really captivating from one of the students in the beginning of the first exercise and act it out. And that's working together, directing, assigning parts, writing the script and putting it on, and something short, just 5 minutes or so. And as you can see, these are the soft skills that you're targeting: collaboration, creative thinking, trust, communication, leadership, work ethic, time management, and confidence. And so when you're done with these exercises, I don't want this to be something that we're telling them this is what you are targeting when you're doing these exercises. After you do them, it's then time to sit back and listen to the students and say, how did this make you feel? Where did you think you didn't excel? Where did you excel? How about your other students? What did you gain from this? And having that full conversation. I think there's so much about having the muscle memory when you are a performer that it stays with you. And those moments of those learning, because you put it in your body, stays with you as an artist, but that you can utilize it in the future. But here's the thing. There is certainly a stigma of arts in education. And that comes from the perception that arts education lacks concrete outcomes, just like soft skills. They are subjectives. Also, artistic careers are unrealistic and impractical. What are you going to do with that degree, for example? Cultural devaluation. Actors were jesters, putting on shows, comedians making jokes. The misunderstanding of the discipline and the training required in the arts. And lastly, the underfunding and lack of resources. The arts are one of the first things to go when it comes to education. Recently in June, Florida Governor DeSantis already defunded over $30 million that was allocated to the arts and cultural grants. So I had the opportunity to talk to Leslie Stager, who has her PhD in organizational psychology. She also has her MFA in acting. She's a SAG-AFTRA actor writer, and she had a lot of great information that she did so much research on, borrowing from professional theater training to build essential skills for organizational development practitioners. And here's what she had to say about the stigma of the arts.
Absolutely biased, because artists, theater people, actors, I mean, needless to say, actors have had horrible reputations throughout history. Were thought to be flighty and undisciplined and overly dramatic. And the one that really galls me is that, and this goes for any artist, is that, you have to be drunk or insane to be creative, when it is absolutely the absolute opposite. To be creative, you really have to have your wits about you to be able to do it. The other thing is that people don't understand is that, and any artist, we all have boundaries. And it's not just, I can do this today, and, if I move to do it. No. If I'm an actor, I have to have my lines learned by a certain time. I have to be able to support my other actors in a scene. I have a deadline because we've got an opening night, hopefully. I mean, there are boundaries and goals I have to meet. I have to be extremely responsible. So trying to break that conscious bias, not unconscious, that conscious bias against performers, and I think especially actors, is still extremely difficult.
So how do you prove that the arts are beneficial in growth, professionally and personal growth? So the benefits of arts and education to gain soft skills. I got to speak with Tara Hodge, who is the director of education with the Raleigh Theater Department, and she worked a lot with the schools with arts in elementary schools and through schools. And she also had a very interesting program at the theater that was called Theatrical Training for Professional Development. And what she said is, I work a lot with students, but why aren't adults still using these techniques to train those soft skills? And I said to her, well, what do you say to them when you go into these big meetings about how beneficial the arts are in education?
Concepts in the art helps make you a well-rounded person. It speaks to communication, how to be an effective communicator, learning how to apply vocal elements, learning how to assess nonverbal cues, to be able to effectively communicate your thoughts and feelings to other people and understand other people's thoughts and feelings. It makes us more tolerant of people. It makes us embrace diversity. It makes us more caring, because we, as artists, we analyze a lot. We analyze why people do things. The arts helps you embrace yourself. It helps you learn about yourself and the things that make you, just how to process your emotions, how to be aware of your emotions. Problem solving is a big part of the arts and theater in particular. Helps you navigate how to deal with conflict, how to know what your objective is and what the obstacles are to get around accomplishing your, reaching your goal.
So the theater arts education are not just about nurturing artistic skills, but there are a way for us to gain and develop our soft skills. And I hope you can see that more than ever in this symposium that we had today with the Curtain Call for Success, that this is something that we can utilize from the theater arts to transfer these soft skills into business, and why it's so important today. So I thank you all so much for being here with me, and I'm going to leave you with this thought by William Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. We all will in our lifetime wear many different hats, whether a parent or a child, a teacher or a student, a boss or a colleague, just like actors changing costumes. But it's up to us to develop our characters. And with that, gaining technical skills, but also developing those very important soft skills that we talked about today, not only to gain more success in business, but also for the richness of our lives. Thank you so much. All right, so now I want to say thank you. These are once again all of the information if you want to connect with me further with. I truly hope you do. These are the references I utilized when doing my thesis and this symposium. Like I said, I was amazed and honestly excited by the information I was able to find on this topic.